There are certain challenges when it comes to patenting of software. And then again, there are some challenges in terms of patenting certain kind of software, which some think are actually improvement in software technology, but they may not necessarily be an improvement in technology, right? Now, before we get there, let's look at what are the criteria to get a patent granted. Now, very broadly speaking, there are three criteria to get a patent granted. So if you have a technology, it has to meet the criteria of what is referred to as novelty, non-obviousness, and the third thing is being subject matter requirement. Now, coming to novelty, if the technology has some aspect that can be considered as new as compared to what is already there in public domain across the world, then that technology is considered to be novel. And essentially, novelty is judged based on what is known in public domain across the world. On the basis of that, right, what is known across the world is typically referred to as prior art. So in view of prior art, one checks whether there are some aspects of your technology that are not disclosed in this particular in these prior art references when considered individually. And if there is something new, then the novelty requirement is met. Moving on, non-obviousness requirement. Even the non-obviousness requirement is judged based on what is already known in public domain. That is, it is judged based on prior art. As compared to novelty, meeting the non-obviousness criteria is relatively harder. The reason being, in a non-obviousness requirement, the technology should be such that it should not be obvious to a person who has ordinary skill in that particular field in view of the combination of teachings of the prior art. Now, the difference between novelty and non-obviousness is that in novelty, it's a single reference or a single prior art piece that is compared against our technology. Whereas in non-obviousness, it is a combination of prior art references that are considered to see whether our invention meets the non-obviousness requirement of patentability. Now, this is fairly common, be it a software invention or be it an invention in a mechanical or an electrical or a chemical domain, be it whatever, these two criteria pretty much remain the same. Now, the third requirement is what is referred to as a subject matter requirement. Now, most countries, including India, provide a list of certain things which are not considered as inventions. And therefore, they're not considered to be subject matter that can actually be patented. Right? Now, typically when it comes to software inventions, assuming that they meet the novelty requirement, which means to say that there is something new in that particular software technology, assuming that it meets also the non-obviousness requirement, which means to say that that software technology has some aspect which is not obvious considering what is there in public domain, the key challenge comes in the subject matter requirement, wherein one has to ensure that the software invention does not fall into one of those subject matters which are listed as not being patentable. Now we will get into subject matter requirement. Now, when it comes to the Indian patent law, there are multiple lists. There is a fairly exhaustive list as to what cannot be considered to be an invention, therefore what cannot be patented. However, when it comes to software inventions, among that list, there are certain aspects which are very critical. And it is on the basis of these aspects wherein there will be some challenges in actually patenting a software. We will go through each of these different challenges. So the four challenges essentially are what is called as mathematical method. Very broadly speaking, a mathematical method cannot be patented. Second, a business method cannot be patented. Third, computer programs, which is your source code essentially, cannot be patented. And lastly, algorithm cannot be patented. So these are the four criterias, or these are the four different types of subject matter wherein the patent office might pose challenges that your software invention probably falls into one or more of these different subject matters, and therefore your software invention cannot be patented. So that is where the challenge kind of starts coming up, right? So what we need to do is actually understand each of these different types of subject matter which are excluded from patenting.